Welcome to episode 7 of Wrestling Cards Unabridged. Today we're talking 2006 WWE Chrome Superfractor set. Actually, we're going to talk about probably the whole set. It's one of the last big sets that you could have a chance to get the master set for. I know there were a few like Action, Rivals, and some like that. And then nowadays, because this is back when Superfractors were out of 25 rather than out of 1. And so there is definitely master set possibilities, and I love chasing master sets, and this was one of my favorites, partially just because looking back at it, it brings back a lot of memories and stories and chasing, and because this was back when wrestling card collecting was just a little bit different. I know there are a few other collectors, you could still hear about them today, who were collecting at this time, and so I'm not going to give years because I don't know the exact history of when everybody started, but there was a time in the early 2000s, or the early aughts as some would call it, and that where there wasn't as much competition. So, but for this Superfractor set, one of my biggest accomplishments in wrestling cards in my mind, because it took a long time, and at the most there's only 25 of them in the world, and actually I have 3 copies of one of the cards, and so that would make 23 sets possible after that. And so and just besides one time, I believe I got 4 or 5 commons in a time, and I think there were a couple times where I got 2 at a time. Well, one time I got like maybe 4 or 5 singles but they were all individually listed as well. But for the most part, it was just looking for them and watching for them. Like I said, there were a few people that I really liked back then that ironically I still kind of super collect today, that would that I didn't mind picking up the duplicates of, because now I have the duplicate in my super collection. But life was a little different back then. This was probably one of the toughest cards to get, the John Cena. That's also card number 1. As back at this, he was hot. He was actually just kind of coming out at this time, but he was quite the collection. I'm pretty sure I got it for under 100 though back at the time, which I would be looking like a pretty good deal, I think, today. That was one I knew there were some Cena collectors. I don't know when they started, but that was one that was a little hard. Sad part is a lot of these, it was just putting the set together. I'm not even going to remember the full stories. We'll get to that in a little bit here too. Batista, Carlito, you have, that actually would be John Morrison's rookie right there, which is kind of a cool thought. Johnny Nitro, but I'm pretty sure that'd have to be considered his rookie, so that's a little better card this set. You have the superheroes there, and I apologize for the complete lack of production quality in this video, but this is kind of the way we do it. There's one of the cards I definitely want to talk about, because sad to say it, I wish I had a really cool story. I don't even remember getting the Rock card. It was just one of the cards I needed in the set. At the time, it wasn't like, oh, this is life-changing for the set, so I'm guessing it was sometime in the middle of the set. I saw it, I would have probably paid it. He would have been a little bit of a premium, so I'm guessing under 50 bucks. I'm not sure. And so I wish I had a story. I wish I had a really cool story about finding the Rock card and adding it to my collection, because it's sure. But back in 2006, 2007, 2008, he was actually a big name. But actually, right below him, that would have been one of the harder. Actually, the 2 below him would have been 2 of the hardest cards of the set. We'll talk about the hard. You'll have to add this. You'll have to add the Cena in on it, and then you have the Hogan and the Austin. I remember getting the Hogan. It was still under 100 bucks though, which is, I think, a pretty good deal. And then you have the rest of the cards in that. Eugene was still around at that time. Don't remember the Flair. I don't remember how I ended up with the Flair. Probably a tough card at the time, but once again, you're just set collecting. It's like there's so many of them, you just can't remember everybody. RVD, always one of my favorites. Shawn Michaels would have been a bigger one at the time. This card is special because this was the card that completed the set for me, the Kane. I would call him about a mid-tier at the time. And when did I complete this set? I'm going to say probably about 2010. It could have been 2010 or 2011 probably when I completed it. So, and this was the card that I needed to complete it. Kurt Angle. And then you have people like Kid Cash, who this would have been definitely a cut. This one would have been very easy to come across. Even easier than like the Rosie and the Hurricane and stuff. Kid Cash would have definitely been a common. Sadly, both Styles and Coachman would have been considered commons. Benoit is always a little... I don't remember if I got it before or after his death, and so that would have changed the value of it just a little bit. And... there's one of your commons right there, one of the, I guess it's Basham brothers at that time. Doug and Danny Basham, I believe, is there. I'm going to assume we're going to see the other one eventually. Anderson, or this would have been Mr. Kennedy, I would assume, would have been a little harder card at the time to, I'm sure he's lost a lot of value now, but at one time was a little hot. You got your ECW stars, you have, I'm assuming this is Viscera at this time, before Big Daddy V. Chavo was always an easy one to get. Ironically, Val Venus, usually a pretty easy one to get. I'm going to adjust the light a little bit as we try to keep the light on the subject. We're going kind of in opposite order here, but I think that's just going to be easier for now. You have, there's Nunzio, he had to be in one of the common piles. Randy Orton wouldn't have been a hard one at that time to get. This is obviously 2002 is his rookie. This is a little bit into it. Well, if this is 2006, when this set came out, it would have been WrestleMania 22. WrestleMania 21, he had his match with The Undertaker. So he was already kind of making a pretty big name for himself. I would assume, I should know my wrestling history, but what year? I don't think he was champion yet. I don't think Evolution was around yet, even though we do have Flair and Batista. I feel bad for not knowing that, honestly. But I won't edit that out, and I'll just admit that I don't know. Another ECW task. Scotty 2 Hotty, as much as I like him, definitely in the commons. Undertaker would have been tough. But once again, I mean, it wasn't like an impossible card to get. It wasn't like, I mean, there was not a single card in the set that would have been over 100 at the time. And most of them were well below that. The commons, I would say, at one time, you could pick up commons for about $4 to $5 pretty easily. Especially if you're going to buy like a group of 4 commons. I mean, you're talking like $20 at the most. And actually, you're talking not a lot of competition. So, kind of good. But if you're putting a set together, you need something. There's, Antonio, I believe he had a tag team called the Heartthrobs. And so, it might be actually the only card of Antonio in WWE, so that's actually maybe a little cooler than it seems. Here we go to another Funaki. There's the Lashley, that's a rookie card, so that's probably one of the better cards of the set. JBL, we already had Kid Cash, so who is that? That's Paul Burchill. Oh, he had the pirate gimmick. And Katie Lee Burchill was with him, who later became Winter. She actually still does a lot of signings. I think she does a lot of independent shows. And so I have no idea whatever happened to Paul Burchill. There's one of the Mexicools, Psychosis. Chris Masters. Chris Masters actually had a little bit of a run in about 2009. Remember him? And he had a tag team. I almost say he might have teamed with Orton even a little bit. He fought DX for a while. And he was a little bigger than... He never quite got over the hump, but they tried for a little while. He had some things going for him. Shelton Benjamin, always a common, unfortunately, probably underrated because his matches, his World's Greatest Tag Team was a pretty good tag team. But yeah, Shelton Benjamin, I've never seen Shelton Benjamin take off with collectors. And there you have Nunzio. No, that's Super Crazy. My bad. Super Crazy. And now, well, we got into the last 3 here. There you have the other part of the Heartthrobs, Romeo. I guess him and Antonio were the Heartthrobs. I honestly don't remember a thing about them, so I'm going to go back after this now and look at one of their matches just to see what I can find. I mean, I would assume they were on Raw or something. Rob Conway, the French sympathizer. Then he got into the Divas, and this is kind of interesting because these would have been a lot harder at the time than they would be now as a whole. I mean, you're talking... I would put, well, here you have the Trish. And this, well, so many things to talk about with the Divas. First off is you have kind of the old school and then meeting the semi-new school. I mean, you're not talking Paige or the Bellas yet or AJ, but you have Trish and Lita and Mickey in the set. I would say there was 3. And you also have Stacy and Tori. So there's 5 old school Divas. I guess Mickey's kind of right on the transition. But very popular. Trish, one of the most, I mean, and I'm talking in collecting as well. Trish definitely has a following in collecting. Lita has a following in collecting. Mickie James has a slight following in collecting. Tori has a pretty good one, and Stacy, we'll go over to her, has a huge following in the collection world. And so there's your 5 of your divas, and then you're starting to get some of your new people like Michelle McCool and Candice Michelle. I'm going to hit all the Maria. There you have Lillian Garcia. I don't know if I hit everyone. We're going to kind of just go back through the divas one more time just in case. So we have Mickie, Charmel, Trish. Trish would have been one of the toughest cards to get in the set. I kind of remember getting her. Tori, Ashley, Lita. Lita would have been hard. Lillian wouldn't have been that hard to get. Maria would have been hard, and Stacy was very hard to get. And then you have Victoria, who's still had a little bit. Candice Michelle, very hard to get. And Michelle McCool, very hard to get. Melina, actually, about average. I mean, still definitely not a common, but not quite as the other divas. And then you have the Legends. Pretty cool Legends set overall. There's going to be one that we're going to throw in. Well, actually, ironically, these were pretty easy to, I'm not easy to get, but cheaper, and it seemed like maybe a little easier to get as a whole. These were not collectible, unless, I'll see if we get to one that might have had a little bit. But Bulldog and Chief J Strongbow were really easy to get. Roberts wasn't that hard. Monsoon wasn't that hard. Classy Freddie Blassie wasn't that hard. The King wasn't hard. These are all, ironically, these are all commons, even though it's a pretty solid group. JYD, one of my all-time favorites. Iron Sheik. I know the Iron Sheik's got some collectors now, so that was good. Bobby Heenan might have been a little harder. That might be, I might put that one a little over a common back then, and obviously still today. Ted DiBiase was pretty easy to get. Piper definitely would be harder today to find than he was back then. He was still more than a common, but, and actually the light still seems to be working pretty well. Jimmy Hart, pretty much a common, as much as good as he is. Here's the one that doesn't quite fit into the Legends, in my opinion. Godfather, not that I have anything against him. I loved Papa Shango. Who else was he? Was he Kama, the Supreme Fighting Machine, if I'm not mistaken? And the Godfather. But yeah, at that time, still not that hard to get. Slaughter, not that hard to get. Orndorff, not that hard to get. One of my other favorites from the 80s. Superstar Billy Graham, they're not that hard to get in Volkov. So you really, I mean, you have maybe the Piper, maybe the Heenan as your tough cards from the Legends set. So the Legends set was actually a lot easier. It would be a little harder, I think, to put together. I think people are appreciating the Legends a little more. I think the Divas as a whole would be a little easier to put together today. I mean, everything's gone up, so, I mean, not cost-wise, but the Divas were probably almost the hardest part of the set back then. The Divas, Stone Cold, Hogan maybe, Cena, and maybe even someone like Michaels or The Undertaker. Like I said, I wish they had a story of The Rock. I mean, it's amazing how some of these cards came about. I remember, but this would have been, this is the only Superfractor set I have, unfortunately. I'm not in the ball. I have a bunch of other Superfractors from different years, but nothing that I'm really down to the wire on sets yet. Maybe someday, but right now they're just it would be piece by piece. But one of the coolest stories I remember, I was actually going to share this, and then I realized it wasn't the right set, but it had to be some kid. He just had a stack of wrestling cards on the living room floor, took a picture, was selling them on eBay for like 99 cents, and I mean the shipping was going to be worse than the 99-cent starting bid. But I'm guessing there are 100, 150 cards. And there was a Highlanders Superfractor. So you could tell it was, the picture was good enough. You could tell it was a Highlander Superfractor. You had to look for it. You had to look a little deep. It wasn't going to be obvious. And I just figured for I'm pretty sure I won the bid at 99 cents and got the set. There are other Chrome cards were, so I mean, looking back at it, it was a good investment, even just for the Chrome cards at that point. And the Superfractor wasn't in bad. That's the nice thing about Chrome is it's pretty hard to get these in bad condition. The PSA, I mean, I guess part of it is then what do you do from here with a Superfractor set? You have like all these cool cards. I would love to get the Master set. I would love the idea of having a 2006 Chrome Master set. I'm not sure if anyone else in the world has one right now. There's for Superfractors on PSA registry, there's only 2, I believe. I believe there's a Hogan is graded and the Big Show is graded. I don't even remember seeing the Big Show. Oh, there's that. He's over. He was an early one. So those are the 2 that are graded on PSA. So obviously no one is going for the PSA. Part of me is like, I should send it. I mean, this would be quite the expensive PSA submission, but it would be kind of cool. I really have no desire to. I don't need to see myself as top on the PSA list, but I know it's a good. I know it's a good investment, and it'd be interesting to see what it is. Like I said, I do not have the complete X-Fractor set yet. I'm pretty sure if I've watched social media correctly, there's at least 2 people that are chasing. I'm sure more than that, even just 2 people on social media right now that are trying to chase. And that's actually become, honestly, if you want a comparison, and this is kind of how collecting has gone over the last 15 years, and it's kind of cool. Looking for X-Fractor cards today was kind of what it felt like looking for Superfractor cards back 15 years ago. So it's just kind of like, it kind of makes you like, wow, like that's how much this set has evolved. People love the chrome. It's a great set. It's a great looking set, and chrome, and then the shiny chrome, and so people chasing the X-Fractor cards. I have seen like some of the X-Fractor cards go for like $60-$70. And they would have been the same ones that the Superfractors were going for $60-$70 15 years ago. So that's kind of interesting to note. I actually do not believe I have the X-Fractor set. I think I do not have it all together. I think I'm going to guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 short, maybe could be up to 20, could be as low as 10. I have the Hogan, I have the Rock, I have the Austin, I have the Flair, and I'm not sure on the scene. I have the Trish Stratus, and I'm pretty sure I have most of the Divas, at least, and most of the hard Divas, so that should be good too. You never know, there could be some weird one thrown in all of a sudden, like the Iron Sheik or something. Like, do I have the Iron Sheik X-Fractor? The good news is I used to chase the Legends a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if I have the whole Legends X-Fractor set, which would actually be a lot harder to get today than it was back then. And I do have the whole Refractor set. I just went through that in my collection, and so that I could show that, but they pretty much look like regular cards on a video. I think these come out okay looking like, because yeah, so that's kind of hard. And then there's autographs to get them too, but there's the autographs. There's a couple tough ones. I believe the Benoit is the toughest one. I'm not sure. I don't think I have them all. I have a good chunk of them though too. So put the Super Master set together, and then figure out where to go from here with the Superfractors. But I wish they would do this again. I mean, but I understand the 1-of-1s is where all the big money is. But these were out of 25 is a pretty cool thought to have. And I would love to. Heritage 2, Heritage 3 both had chrome, and so it'd be really cool to get those someday, or to at least partially get some of my favorites. The problem is too, then some of them go into my super collection, some other people too. But if you've watched enough of my videos by now, you know I just kind of do whatever, and you never know what's going to be a part of my collection, and that's the way I like to collect, and so it kind of works out well that way. So Superfractors. I wonder how much of this chrome. I wonder how much unopened wax there is left. Is that what you call it? Unopened wax? That might not be the right term. I think probably boxes, packs. Is there a lot of unopened stuff? I don't follow that much because I don't buy boxes, and so yeah, who knows? Well, thanks for sticking with me. Sorry that just life has been so busy. You can tell that I don't even have the great production going right now because I just don't have time to deal with anything outside of life and everything going on, but I'm doing well, so don't worry about me. And I'm also trying to balance. I'm getting ready for my annual WrestleMania trip. This is about when the planning starts and trying to get all that figured out. And so if I have extra time for wrestling, I have to kind of do that otherwise, and then take care of my family on top of that. So, but thanks for sticking with me on these videos. Please comment below I'll eventually slowly try to probably finish my X-Fractor set, so maybe I'll put some want lists out there at some time, and I love to trade and stuff like that. We can figure out what we need. Maybe, I'm sure I have duplicate X-Fractors and refractors that I would be willing to trade too, so maybe if you're chasing the X-Fractor set or something, someday we could do that, but it's not going to happen this week, so don't send me an email and expect me to find my X-Fractors this weekend. Because like I said, I don't even know what I have for the X-Fractor set right now. But hey, just follow and keep in mind, and hopefully sometime maybe in the spring after the new year, I'll be able to focus a little bit more and figure out what I have in some of these collections. So thanks for joining me. Have a great week.